Hello, everybody, and welcome to the newest episode of Circuit 42. I'm your host slash wizard slash professional awesome person, Ian, and I am here with James Finch. He is also a wizard, I hear, pray tell, of podcasts and YouTube. Is that true, Mr. The Finch?
I've never heard the term wizard, but I'll add it to the list. Like, James Finch, first of his name, Lord of the Iron Kingdoms, wizard. We'll just add it. One more name on the side of the Starbucks cup. That's fine.
There you go. Just make it as long as possible. They love it when you do that. Just make it really convoluted and complicated for no reason.
Right.
It makes their day. Trust me. So you host a YouTube channel and podcast I found called the Finch X Podcast. And I started listening to some of your shows, and I started listening to a couple of your interviews. I started going through it, and I'm like, this is a really cool channel because I've been looking for like X-Men content because um I had become a big fan a long time ago. I'd become a fan of J Miles like everybody, and then through J Miles, I discovered the Cerebrocast and all these various X-Men podcasts, and I realized that outside of like three podcasts, probably including JML's Rebrocast and another one I can't quite remember at the top of my head. Um, most of the podcasts were ironically kind of toxic, and I'm like, have you guys read these comics? It's like when I go in an X-Men group on Facebook and people are complaining about the brown characters, and I'm like, got to tell you something that you may have not picked up in the obvious subtext.
There is nothing funnier to me personally than somebody who will, in one breath, proudly declare that they're an X-Men fan and have been for a long time, and the next breath complain about the X-Men books becoming woke.
Excuse me, sir, but
To
X-Men 97 is super woke, and we have never had any. And Iceman has clearly openly been gay since 2015.
Right, yeah, yeah,
I don't know what
clearly.
those purple pants were doing, although admittedly, most gay men would decline to wear those purple pants from that X-Men 57, but that's not important right now.
Right.
Jesus Christ, those things are hideous, man.
Yeah, it's one of the most amazing things, and it's you know from what we know, like anybody who knows X-Men knows like the origins of it, and the representation of being a metaphor for the civil rights movement, and obviously you had Professor X, who was very much like a Martin Luther King type character, at least was at the time. Then you had Magneto, who is very much a Malcolm X type character, with obviously the tragic backstory of the Holocaust and everything. Um, but for some reason, people seem to think that like the metaphor stops there, not taking into account that as you like get into this day and age, like how much the X-Men and how much that community has meant to members of the LGBTQ community, members of the autism community, because it basically becomes like a beacon of light for those who were born different and therefore were also rejected by people close to them growing up. Um, and how people miss that is like absolutely 100% beyond me.
I mean, if you look at for the Cyclops Spotlight, it was one of my favorite comics in the last 5 years. And anyone who's familiar with Jay Edidin knows that Jay Edidin is on the spectrum and basically wrote Cyclops as being that way. And I'm like, that is one of the most accurate like portrayals ever of that character. I'm like, yeah, there's a lot that clicks once you start reading it that way.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I think you find that with so many of them, and I think that the Cyclops autism thing, I think, is like it's dead on, and I root for it. My wife's autistic. One of my
Yeah,
children is autistic. I absolutely root for it, and it makes sense in a whole bunch of ways as well.
yeah. I remember the first show I listened to yours. I was basically just doing dishes, and I was like, I was watching something about X-Men, and even though I think it was I can't remember what it was, but just totally blanked. But after it came up with like recommended shows, and it was actually your interview with Kizzy Frost,
Oh, okay.
and so I had that playing while I was working on the dishes, and I'm like, that sounds really cool. Also, this X-Men event sounds awesome. So I'm an idiot, and I completely forgot the name of the X-Men event. But you had talked about an event where you basically went to something that was almost like the X-Men Mansion, and I'd read an article about this before, but I
Oh,
just totally blanked on the name of it.
the Radha and Gray Malkin crossover they
Yes.
recently did. Yeah. Yeah. Are you reading any of the books currently?
I am not right now. I kind of there was a point during Krakoa when we were starting in the middle of a move, and basically everything after 2021 I've not got a chance to read yet. And the sad thing is, I realized that because I just have not been able to pick up comics lately, I'm like, I'm gonna have to do the Marvel Unlimited thing.
Yeah, it's worth it. So they had Krakoa. Krakoa was great. Like anybody out there who's like listen to this, who's interested in getting to X-Men, go get the House of X, Powers of X trade. That's a
Yeah,
great
and then you've got the
spot.
hardcover actually being reprinted too,
Yeah.
and you've got the first Krakoa omnibus finally coming out too. Like
Yeah.
I've told people like if unless you've already read them and there's a series that you really liked, like I loved X-Men Red, I love everything by Al Ewing and Storm. I've been in love with Storm since I was like 10. So I'm extremely biased. But I tell people if you've read them already and there's some titles that you really, really like, collect those titles. But if
hmm
you're wanting to get in Krakoa proper, just don't get any of the collections as of right now. Just jump into that first omnibus. Jump into that, get that hardcover, get that omni when they come out.
Yeah, absolutely. And the whole like Krakoa thing was like cinematic level stuff. Like it was just really, really good X-Men writing. A lot of people I think are sort of like not keen on the new era, partially because they're upset that Krakoa ended to begin with.
I'm actually enjoying
Um,
the new era though. Like I started reading Uncanny because Gail Simone is amazing.
mhm.
And then I was kind of off and on the X-Men at first, but I love Ryan Stegman's artwork, so that kind of got me reading. And I'm like, oh, this got good real fast. Because the first couple episodes, not episodes, issues were kind of a little bit. I don't know what the term I'm looking for, but it took a while for them to step up to the plate. Where with Gail Simone, it was just a home run, right
hmm
outside. Sports
Yeah,
metaphors, guys. How we isolate nerds.
right. Yeah, they were. Yeah, I mean, issue one of Uncanny X-Men, like Gail Simone just took the ball and ran with it for another sports metaphor. So good. I mean, her stuff. I love Gail Simone. She's just such an awesome human being. But yeah, the writing in that was just some of the best X-Men stuff. That I've read in a long time. I tried really, really hard when I saw her at the Uncanny Experience to convince her to somehow make it Marvel canon that Freddie Mercury was a mutant. And while she's amused by the concept, she wasn't. She was like, Marvel's never going to get the rights to that. And I thought, well, at least I can say I tried, right?
I got to meet her once, and it was one of the coolest interactions. We didn't even talk about comics. First, there was an unfortunate interaction because apparently I was one of the few people who her husband didn't have to explain to that I'm not the comic creator. My wife is the comic creator. And but the positive interaction was that being I'm a big classic horror fan, myself and my spouse are big horror people. So I had just started introducing her to Hammer horror. And so we started talking about Universal Monsters and apparently how they had watched how Gail and her husband had binged like all the Universal Monster movies. And now for that Halloween, they're starting on Hammer. And as someone who my college horror movie education was Hammer horror and Dario Argento, I'm like, yes, yes, all of this.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, like horror and X-Men are like the two things I love more than anything else.
Love it. Awesome.
So I gotta ask you, what was the um what was the comic that made you a fan? What was the story behind it? Because everyone has that one comic that hit at the right time.
Uncanny X-Men number 216,
Ooh.
1989. In and of itself, it's not a major issue. It's not an issue that's a collector's that like people like scour
The
trying to
best ones
find.
aren't.
No, it was just it was one of those I think like you know Nexus moments or canon events, I guess if you will. I remember I was 9 years old, so this was in 1989. I've got gray in my beard.
Oh, I have gray, you
And
just can't see it.
fair, fair. And this neighbor kid who lived in my neighborhood just handed me the comic. And at the time, I had never heard of X-Men. I had never read a comic book before. And being the age that I was, everything up till that point in time was G.I. Joe, Transformers, Ninja Turtles cartoon. And I remember just looking at the cover and it was out there like you look at the cover and it was really, really intricate. It was when Storm was in her full Mohawk jean vest
Oh,
phase.
the Paul Smith era.
Yeah,
Now,
and
was
she
this? Now I can remember. Was this Paul Smith or was this when John Romita Jr. came in? Because she still had the punk rock. Look,
I don't believe it was Ramita Jr.
you can always
Oh,
tell because Paul Smith's artwork is so clean. Like,
yeah.
I need to get the artist edition for that.
hmm Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was Paul Smith. It was I know Chris Claremont wrote it. Um, but yeah, I'm completely blanking on who the artist was right now. But
I think
you
that
know,
was
you,
Paul Smith. You know what? We have this magical device where we can pretend that we know things, or I can pretend I know things. I'm sure you know because you're a wizard. Let's see. Uncanny 216. Watch him get a Rick Leonardi issue. For the running joke for those who are not big Claremont heads, every time there was a fill-in issue, it was always Rick Leonardi.
okay.
No, but you know what I mean. If you've read the Claremont run, it seems like if it wasn't whoever the ongoing artist was, it was always Rick Leonardi.
hmm
And oh my gosh, okay, do you want to know who drew it?
Who is it?
Um, Not Rick Leonardi. The other freaking guest artist, Butch Guice.
Oh, okay. All right.
I love that cover though. That's a fucking badass cover.
It
Oh yes,
is.
we
It
can
is.
curse on the show.
Yeah.
So because I really don't care about YouTube algorithms at this point. I'm like, that's not making me money, whatever.
Right, yeah, that's okay. I'd let it slip on occasion anyway. But yeah, you look at that cover, right? And
It's
that you
very
just,
gritty.
yeah, you just look at when you're like 9 years old. That to me was like it just instantly locked me in, and I'm like, what is this? Started reading it. There was, in this book, there was this crazy guy who was just in an absolute frenzy and had these like claws coming out of his hands. And at one point, he's like running through the woods and runs out into a road and gets hit by a car. And the couple stops and gets out of the car and he's gone. He just kept running. And I'm like, who is this crazy motherfucker? Right? I gotta know. Um, so I've been a Wolverine fan ever since. My youngest son is named Logan. Um, so that was, and after that, I was just hooked. Like after that, I was like, I immediately went to the neighbor kid like the next day. I'm like, you gotta, like, tell me you got more. And he was a couple years older than me. And he handed me a whole, like, shoebox full of Uncanny X-Men comics because I don't know what it was, man. He was like 12 or something. And he was going through this, like, I'm
I'm
too
too
old for
grown for
comic
this.
book.
Rawr, rawr,
Yeah, and
rawr.
handed to me. And I remember just sitting in my bedroom, like, night after night, just like devouring them over and over. I was so excited because that comic, that Uncanny 216, which was the first one that I was ever handed, I still have like that original copy that was given to me at that time. And this past September, I was able to take it and get Chris Claremont to sign it, which to me was like this massive full circle thing of like, I held on to it all these years on moves and divorces and everything else, and like now there it is, like in my collection, bagged and boarded, signed by the man himself.
Oh, that's amazing. I remember I got to meet Claremont once, and I was not messing around. I brought all the issues I had of the Phoenix Saga at that point. I think I got every issue, but two of the Dark Phoenix Saga signed, and eventually I got to meet John Byrne, and I got 129 and 137 signed by him. And I also got my premiere, the Marvel did the premiere edition hardcovers.
Mhm.
I got my God Loves Man Killed signed, Man Killed signed as well. But I've got something to show you. Hold on.
All right.
This is my Grail, man. It's not the most expensive book. It's not really even worth that much.
Oh
But hold
yeah.
on, hold on.
Oh, you got
That's Scott Lobdell,
right.
Scott Williams, John Byrne, Chris Claremont, and Jim Lee.
There you go. Did Chris Claremont sign it before or after Jim Lee?
Um, Actually, would you believe before?
Okay, that's a
And
bit of
here's the
a.
funny thing. Here's the funny thing. Lobdell signed it last,
hmm
but nobody had signed the top part. So this just worked out.
Oh
Like
yeah,
you'd think that this was signed by them at the same time, right?
right.
Because the way the signatures were laid out, and there was just space for everybody.
Uh-huh.
And I'm like, you know what? I don't need it signed by RT Bear because that would mean he'd probably make me buy his Comicsgate shit.
hmm Yeah.
And yeah, Comicsgate doesn't need my money.
Yeah, and Chris Claremont, he's a wacky dude. I love that guy. I've met him a couple times. The last time I met him, I don't know if
Lucky duck.
I don't know if you're familiar with the Uncanny Experience, the con in Minneapolis.
Yeah, that's the one you were talking about
Yeah,
during the interview.
yeah, and so he's there, and because it's like an immersive experience, like you're supposed to be at Xavier's. His title there is Professor Claremont, and so when you get in line to have him sign this, like they have him in like a wood paneled room with like a big oak table and a leatherback chair, and you get brought in like one at a
I
time.
feel like that's just where Claremont lives. That's how he
Yeah,
lives.
right.
Yeah.
And so I go in there and I slide the comic book over to him and I tell him the story like, "Oh, this is the first comic book." And this guy like legit like looks at the comic and gets a smile on his face and he opens it up and leans back in his chair. And I stand there for an awkward 15 minutes while he reads the whole thing and
I'm fine with that.
doesn't say a word. I was totally fine with it, except for the fact there was a line behind me and there were eyeballs in the back
Oh,
of
he
my
doesn't
head.
care.
No, he does
That's the
not.
thing I've learned about Claremont. He does not care.
Not one bit. I thought it
He's
was
giving
really
he's giving you that experience.
Yeah, yeah, and I got to say it was really classy of him because the first year they did it, like when you're there both days at the end of it, they actually have like a graduation ceremony where you get like a diploma. And the first year, Chris Claremont was the one who handed out the diplomas. You went up one at a time and shook his hand, and were handed a diploma. He was there again this year, and they were going to do the same thing, except right before they started handing out the diplomas, he handed them over to Gail Simone for her to do it, which was just like you just wanted to die. Like it was
Yeah.
just, I mean, he still stood there and shook everybody's hand as they came up, but he like passed the baton to Gail Simone to be the one to hand the diplomas out.
There's something I want to touch on after. I'm going to talk about my first X-Men, like the one that keyed me into it, because I had some X-Men classic issues that have been given to me by our neighbor kid across the way. Have you noticed that everyone goes to the same comic book store, the neighborhood kid from
Right.
across the way? It's that weird that everyone goes to that same comic book store. Um, but so it's story time. Like every kid from that, like every '90s kid, I started with the animated series. Um, but the Fleer Ultra cards, my dad,
Mhm.
what he did, because my dad would just have fun with this. He's always been that dad. He bought a box of Fleer Ultra cards. I had no idea. And he bought it because we would always go to the Walgreens and I would pick up random card packs, but I never had a complete set, just random whatever random Marvel cards they had that time. And it was Albertsons. I remember because they would put them behind the customer service section because of all the whole card hype at the time and all the people trying to steal like collector's cards and shit.
Mhm.
So he bought a box of the Flitter Ultra cards and he put them in the closet. And every weekend, my friend Skeets would sleep over and and if, and he would give us cards. He'd give me a pack and he would give Skeets a pack. He would just come out of the room with cards. We're like, what the fuck? Where's this coming from? And so now, of course, as anyone who's ever bought a box of cards like that knows the problem of doing cards that way. And of
Mhm.
course, we're going to get into that. So every time my dad would come out with a pack of cards, and one day he was like, "Do you want to where I get all the cards from?" Yeah. Well, I bought a box of cards. Do you want to open the rest of them right now? Okay. And we
Yeah.
opened up all the cards, and there was like probably five, six, seven, eight, nine, 10 of the packets in there. I was opening them up. I was putting them in the binder, but I've still got that binder down somewhere. And then it had, if you remember, it had that thing where you could send in the card packets. And if you send in
Mhm.
like what 3 or 4 packets, they would send you like an Ashcan edition. It's like promotional Ashcan. That's it. It's like, oh, that's cool. I still have that Ashcan edition too. I don't have a lot of comics from my childhood, unfortunately, but I still have that. Um, the the thing about me and my dad that when me and my dad both get excited, especially when we both tend to have the exact same sense of subtlety and emotional maturity of a 9-year-old. So considering that was 9 when this happened, or 9 or 10 when this happened, it worked out because my dad and I are like, I wonder what will happen if we put in a whole bunch of card sleeves. So we just shoved all of the packets in the envelope. So it's like 10 or 11 packets. And I feel like they're like, I think these people are touched to the head. So Marvel's like, yeah, I'll send an Ashcan and a copy of Uncanny X-Men 312.
Nice.
And I thought that someone had got me a subscription, like family had surprised me or something.
Mhm.
That was not the case because next month 313 came, and 314 and 315. I had a free year subscription because they're like, they just said everything. Just give them a year of X-Men.
There you go.
And so the first X-Men comic I got in the subscription was Uncanny X-Men 312, which was the first X-Men by Chris Claremont.
Hmm.
I really had just been getting into comics. Like, it was only at that time that I really realized, wait, these come in like a monthly order where if you buy them, the story continues. Because it was that and Larry Hama's Wolverine around the same time, because it was issue like 69 of Wolverine when they went to the Savage Land. And so I'm so I start reading these and I start looking at the art style, and I have been playing Street Fighter, like a bunch of Street Fighter, like every kid in I 10 to 394.
Hmm.
So I'm looking at this, I'm like, this is so cool. Do they all look like this? And I started reading a lot more of them, and I'm like, they do not all look like this. But I've realized in retrospect, for the things I enjoy, the aesthetics I enjoy, that I'm like, that comic had a bigger influence on me than I realized. That
Hmm.
one X-Men issue, the first Joe Madureira official X-Men issue, I'm like, damn. And you know what? This was before like Lobdell's X-Men completely ran off the rails, which I don't. Which even though Lobdell is a very questionable and problematic person, I will talk. We will talk a little bit about Lobdell after the show. It doesn't need to be recorded on here, but at the time, I still blame Bob Harris because Bob
Hmm.
Harris was a hackwit, and but at that point, right during the Phalanx Covenant, I still defend that arc because I'm like, it introduced my favorite X-Men team ever, Generation X. So I'm good. I'm gold. And in terms of aesthetic, like artists like Joe Madureira and Chris Bachalo kind of inspired to influence everything else I liked in the future, be it comics or otherwise.
Hmm. Yeah, Joe Mad was a wild man. Like when he came in and was sort of like doing the redesign
He
of
was
the
like
X-Men
19
character.
when he was doing
Yeah,
X-Men. People don't realize
yeah,
that.
it was wild, and it was such good stuff. Bocello, I mean, to this day, like, oh my god, I love his stuff. Yeah, a lot of those. That whole era was just absolutely fantastic. Because that was like when we did like the Falmax Covenant and Age of Apocalypse,
Hmm.
and yeah, I don't think Age of Apocalypse stands out in X-Men history near as much if somebody other than Joe Mad is doing the art on it.
Come on, you're not a huge fan of Roger Cruz, Joe Mad?
Yeah, yeah, it's there. But Joe
I,
Mad,
I
like
still
he
think it's so
just
weird that he drew the interiors of the Age of Apocalypse comic, not Joe Mad. Like going back and reading that, I'm like, why?
right.
Like give him credit when he started doing X-Men First Class in the 2000s. Like
Hmm.
then he developed that style and that look. Like between that and the Arana series for Spider-Woman, I'm like, oh, you got good.
Hmm.
Like when you made your own style, you got really good.
Yeah,
But that's more about like glass because you've heard of Glass House Graphics, right?
I don't think so. No.
Glass House Graphics is both famous and infamous. Glass House Graphics kicked off the career of Mike Deodato, and they
Okay.
also kicked off the career of people like Roger Cruz. And
Oh, okay.
the name escapes me, but do you remember the infamous Wolverine issue where Wolverine first fights Deadpool? It's become really, really hard to come by now.
Oh,
Now, it's less
yeah.
known for the quality of the story and more known for the fact that you literally have an artist who just spends the entire issue just aping and ripping off Jim Lee for all of his pages.
Yeah, well, it was like what
And
like
Glasshouse encouraged that. And
it
now
was
they're talking about how you shouldn't swipe other artists because Marvel and DC will notice on your portfolio.
yeah, for the longest time I wondered what was up with that because I've got the issue.
Yeah,
And I remember getting it off the newsstand when it came out. And as I recall, like Hubert did the
he
art
did the
on like
intro.
yeah.
The
And
intro
then
looked
all
great.
yeah, and then it was like all of a sudden like you turn the page and the art style is crap. Like it's
Hmm.
just and like just like you said, every page was ripped. Even at like that age, I'm looking, I'm like,
There was
that's
fucking
safe.
Wildcats in there. It wasn't even just X-Men.
Yeah, it was excellent. There were some, I think there was oh god, one of the female characters from Wildcats. It was a drawing of her that was clearly ripped.
Yeah.
Um and the big I remember there's like the one big like panel with like Sabretooth, and it's like so clearly one of the Fleer cards that it was like, what the hell is this? I always wondered what was up with that. Like, I wondered as a kid, I was like a teenager when that came out. I'm like, was Keyboard doing the art and like he had to like had a family emergency and had to leave and they found some hack off the street to finish the last couple pages or the like, the rest of it. I don't know. I always wondered about that. It cracks me up to this day that it's such a sought after issue.
And this is why when that same, well, I can't remember his name, it was like Dave something. He came out criticizing Diamond for declaring bankruptcy and talk about, oh, it's hurting all these small plus indie companies. I'm like, dude, they're funneling money out of their arm. They're like bleeding money. They're not making money anymore. They're just bleeding money out of their arms. So I'm like, first off, I don't want to use the term scam artist, but I'm like, you were a person who literally says like, draw like this person.
Hmm.
Now draw. And I'm like,
Yeah, it's
you
a
can't
fuck.
say anything.
It's a fucking hack. I mean,
Yeah.
can you imagine that? Can you imagine like getting your dream of like getting to draw a comic book, like getting to do the art, and like the best you can do is like just ripping other people's stuff. Like it was trace time, and
Yeah.
then change a few details and color it in different. I don't understand it. I think that like yeah, I remember looking at that and feeling like I remember feeling like personally offended. Like here I am like at the age like mowing yards to be able to afford these comics and this is what I get. Like this was supposed to be this big epic issue and we've got a bunch of basically like thrift shop art in the back of
The
this book.
the worst is when you're looking at some artists now. Like most artists don't do that anymore because it's very, very obvious people are looking out for it. Especially when you
Hmm.
have like swipe groups on social media and stuff like that. But Joelle Jones, who I freaking love, she's an amazing artist, great writer. And so when they came out that she had clearly just swiped poses from some of the recent X-Men issues, and I'm like, this was Krakoa era X-Men. This is like their peak of that whole era in terms of popularity. What are you thinking?
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
she never came out and commented about it at all. And I'm like, you probably should have said something.
Yeah, there was a couple panels in the I want to say the first issue of the current Phoenix run that like within like less than 6 hours of the issue coming out, people were already pointing out on social media like side by side comparison, like this is ripped from this and this was ripped from that. And yeah, in the day and age of social media, you're not getting away with that stuff because somebody's gonna catch it. And once they do, the whole community knows about it.
There was one who, but I look at it this way: it's better to be a swiper than it is to be than it is to just be intolerant and awful. Who was the artist for X-Men Gold? Oh yeah, RDMCF. Who's like, I'm going to put in anti-Semitic coding into the background of my comic book, and I'm like,
What the hell?
oh, and I'm shocked when I'm fired from everything.
Yeah, fuck around and find out. Especially when you're doing an X-Men book.
It's like,
Like,
it's like literally the
bro.
leader of their team is Kitty Pryde. What are you doing, bro?
Yeah, exactly. Like that's
She was
yeah.
literally the first Jewish superhero character.
Hmm.
Yeah, and people
Well,
forget about that.
well, except for Jesus. Right.
Well, yeah, I mean, but does the Rob Liefeld comic really count?
No, nothing by Rob Liefeld counts
I mean,
ever.
he did fight the gods using karate, and it was drawn by Ed Vanias. Speaking of Brazilian comic artists,
That's a topic that comes up frequently. It's a Brazilian comic book artist.
seriously, I don't know why, but all of my favorite comic book artists either were Hispanic or Filipino.
Hmm.
Yeah, like I don't know what it is about it, but it's like almost every favorite comic artist of mine is either Hispanic or from the Philippines.
Hmm. You should look up Giada Belviso.
I don't know Joe
She,
movies.
she's French and she's currently doing the Laura Kinney Wolverine book, and I am just absolutely
Oh,
in love
I
with
have the
it.
first issue. I actually got it because I'm a huge Campbell fan. But see, the angle I have is also the angle I use for when I'm working from home. So I pick very specific posters. So like over there are my Campbell posters, and
Hmm.
over there is my Rogue Savage Land poster, and over there is a big old standee of Vampirella. So I
Hmm.
have this very specific work angle. And I'm like,
Yeah.
you know what? Oddly enough, this works really well for the podcast too.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'm such a sucker for it. Anytime J. Scott Campbell or like David Nakayama are doing like a variant cover, I hop all over it. But yeah, her though, like the art inside the book, even though J. Scott's done variant covers for it, she's like an artist that I hadn't even heard of, and like Instantly first issue. Absolutely
Send
fell
me
in
her
love
name
with.
of the, send me her name on Facebook so I can look up more of her work.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
After speaking of David Nakayama, I actually picked up the Clover Press Art of Marvel by David Nakayama book. Have you seen
Mm,
that yet?
yeah, uh-huh. Absolutely. I've got one signed. I have no
So
idea
cool.
where.
I'm fortunate because even though I'm in San Antonio, I'm an hour away from Austin. And if you've ever seen Austin Books and Comics, seriously one of the best comic book stores ever. Like it's one of my comic stores since high school. If they don't have they'll have it, and if they don't have it, they'll order it. Like literally
Mhm.
their back issue section is the size of some comic book stores.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nakayama, he's such a cool dude. Met him at Fan Expo Chicago last August, and I went up and got a couple books autographed by him. And at the time, he had an X-23 variant cover that was going to be coming out for a book. And I told him, I'm like, dude, I pre-ordered it. I'm so excited. He's like, oh yeah, it should be dropping within like a week or so. So it came a week later, and I threw it up on my Instagram story and tagged him in it. And he immediately replied, like, "Yeah, dude, you said you pre-ordered it. I told you it was coming. You got it. And he's just such a nice, like, talkative dude. But yeah, his artwork, like the variant cover that he did for Magic #1, is currently my wallpaper on my phone
Oh, that's
because
nice.
it's just so good.
Oh, I have a Mark Works guy, and I don't know if you can see it.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's my
Okay.
background right now.
Yes, the X ladies. Is that the like 50s?
Yeah, like the rockabilly style.
Yes. Yes.
I'm in San Antonio. There's a huge like car show, like it's like slapped together car show slash like just the whole like attitude and persona in certain parts of San Antonio. So I'm like, I saw that and I'm like, oh yeah, that's my background.
There you go.
But you're from what, Northeast?
Northern Illinois,
Nice.
like just shy of the Wisconsin border, like so close enough to Chicago.
It seems like that general area, like like Illinois up through like Ohio, that kind of area. There seems like there's bigger and bigger following. I know, of course, Wizard World Chicago and then eventually Fan Expo Chicago. I always wonder what the hell happened to Wizard World. Then I'm like, oh, Fan Expo. Okay, that makes sense now. But
Yeah, yeah. I think yeah, Wizard World Chicago. I think that was the
that was the
first
first one.
con that I ever went to. I shouldn't say that because like Comic Cons weren't a thing. When I was a kid, I think in like 87, 88, I would go with my dad all the time to tabletop gaming conventions that were like weird hybrid because Comic Cons at the time were basically comic book flea markets, right?
Yeah.
They weren't what they are now.
Oh, there's still some like that. I mean, I got to meet Larry Hama at a show called Retro Mania. It's basically a comic flea market. But
Oh, okay.
the first time, like I had met him briefly before, but I didn't know he was at the show, so I ran to get some from him. This time I actually had planned it, and so I brought him a lot of really cool stuff to get signed. And I'm like, this man is like in his 70s, and he is still extremely intimidating to talk to.
Right.
It's like it's like man, based GI Joe was based off of this man. It's like, yeah, that checks out.
Yeah, 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 that's what's so funny is that it's like I know we touch on it, but like Claremont's the same way. Like this past, we were up there for Uncanny. Right across the street from the building is this one of the greatest breakfast diners in the world. Like anytime I'm in Minneapolis, I love going to this place. And every morning that a group of us would go in there for breakfast, Chris Claremont would be in there in a booth by himself having breakfast. And you kept like you want to, but you don't. Like let the man have his breakfast kind of thing. But
Yeah.
he's such a talker. So it's funny because I've got a couple pictures on my phones where it's like us taking a group selfie together, and in the background you can see Chris Claremont just sitting there drinking his coffee, reading the newspaper, and you're like, to me that just still feels so surreal. You know what I mean? He's still
It's
like
so cool.
that intimidating to like be around.
I remember like literally, I've become that kind of friend amongst my comic book people that I know. Because Ali Garza posted this really cute picture of all of him and all of his friends doing like a Breakfast Club style pose. Me, what do I do? Do I say something nice or cute? No, because Ali Garza knows me and he knows I will tease my friends that I love. And I go in there and I post the poster for Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2. And I just had Ali giving off that Texas Chainsaw vibe. No, Ali giving off that vibe. And then I just left that in the comments. I didn't go after anyone else, just Ali. And then I told him I loved him.
There you go.
But yeah, I'm actually excited because that's somebody who I haven't seen since probably say 2016, and then I'm like, oh shit, Ali Garza's coming to San Antonio. I'm gonna go annoy him.
Yeah, and get like I'm like weird about that where I just say like I tell people like any chance you get because you never know like anytime the amount of times that you know you think to yourself because you don't know like life's weird and you never know like when you're like I'll catch him next time and then one day you realize that there is no next time.
I have a
um
story about that.
no.
I have two. This will bring the podcast down a little bit, so we're gonna bring it right back up. Um, so in 2000 was when I went to my first Comic Con, like Comic Con, because like you said, we've all been to the flea market shows. It was Planet Comic Con. Larry Hama, I oddly enough, was supposed to be a guest, but canceled. But there were two guests at this whole show. This is to give you an idea of how small Planet Comic Con. This was her first year. Bill Morrison was there, and Rick Burchett was there, and so I got to be with both of them, and so that was really cool, especially when you're like 15 years old and this is like your first convention. And I could have met Yvonne Craig, and I didn't. And then she's becoming like one of my what I call retro crushes.
Okay.
I'm like, why didn't I meet this woman? What was wrong with me?
Hmm.
But my first really big Comic Con I went to was Wizard World Dallas in 2004. It was her first Al show, and I'm like, never been to Wizard World. This is peak Wizard World because
Hmm.
there's last couple of years before they moved to Fan Expo where you could tell because all of a sudden the guests were dwindling. There were a lot of repeats, and then all of a sudden Wizard World Dallas just didn't happen.
Hmm.
It just got canceled out of nowhere. And the same show that would work me to get me press passes every single year, all of a sudden we're like, yeah, we can't approve it this year, and I would know why. And I'm like, oh, this is bad. This is really bad. And I didn't take it personally because I'm like, there's something going on because I've never had that kind of interaction with them. But back to Wizard World Dallas. So this was a show. This was like that kind of show where I'm like, oh, all the big cons must be like this because Jim Lee was there and Paul Jenkins was there. This was right after he did Origins, and um, just all these big names. J.G. Jones was there, who I realized was kind of a dick, or maybe I was a dick. I don't know. I was like 19, so I was probably a dick. Um, by the way, if you were a teenager and you have an negative interaction with somebody, famous or otherwise, and you think that person was an asshole, you were probably an asshole, but you didn't know it because you're a teenager. Just
Hmm.
putting that out
Yep.
there. So all teenagers are assholes. No, I'm just kidding. Um, just me. Um, so Michael Turner was there, and this is 2004, and he had a line that wrapped around that table. The one I didn't get to meet was Jim Lee because the line was just too long. And I'm like, I can't do it. Oh, Joe Quesada was there, so it's like if you're gonna have a Tim Seeley was there. It's like this is that kind of lineup where you're like, holy shit, this is the kind of show that you don't won't probably won't get to go see again till at least a couple of years later, until they really started kicking up the Fan Expo shows, which I appreciate the equity of Fan Expo when it comes to their guests.
Hmm.
Um, but I was like, you know what? If I'm going to meet someone right now, I need to meet Michael Turner. I don't know why. I heard he was sick, but I want to meet this person. And I met him. I talked to him. I got some comics autographed. And as everyone knows, about 2007, Michael Turner passed away from bone cancer.
Hmm.
And like you said, if you have that opportunity, you need to take that opportunity because you may not be able to take it again.
Right. Yeah. And it is so true. I YOLO
Yeah.
is what I say, and because I firmly believe that like, they say that, you should spend your money on experiences and not things. Um, Side note, my problem is I do both. But so many of those situations, that's why I felt with Chris Claremont. That's why I felt with so many people. Like when I was at Twin Cities, kind of Minneapolis back in November, and went in with a group of friends, and we got a group shot with Hayden Christensen and Ian McDermott. Like how could you not? Like,
So
especially
cool.
Ian being the age that he is. It's like you got a chance to get a picture with Vader and the Emperor. Of course you're going to do it because you may say, well, the price is a little steep. Maybe next time, and then you find out there is no next time, and that's not fun. That's not a fun feeling. So,
Um, sorry. One more experience, then we're gonna kick it back to a lighter topic because we need to after this. It's 2021. It was 2018, 2017. And it was Stan Lee. It was one of his signings
mm,
that we didn't. Of course, none of us knew 2 years later that he just this is a man who wanted to retire. This is a man who
hmm
unfortunately did not want to be there. But we knew an agent, as corrupt as his agents were, he would end up at these signings with like hundreds of people that he really didn't want to see. He just wanted to live his life. But I've always wanted to get the opportunity to meet him. But I was like, that is $125 I cannot spend. I cannot budget. I cannot see myself putting that money out there for one autograph for a few minutes. I that same year I had my Hush Absolute Edition, which I was going to get signed by Jim Lee at the same convention. Somebody ended up spilling chicken sandwich. Well, no, not chicken sandwich, but literally raw food liquid. And I'm like, why did you have raw food liquid in a hotel in the first place?
hmm
All over the Absolute Hush.
mm,
And this was, and my friend, credit to my friend, he, one of the friends in our groups, he wanted to make up for it. And he was like, I'm going to give you the cost of that book. I'm going to give you $100 because he tried to find the book initially and it was nowhere. Because, of course, it was a Jim Lee signing. Who was going to be able to hold on to an absolute hush?
hmm
And so I told him, Stanley is here. I've always wanted to meet Stanley. You cover the 100, I'll cover the 25. And so I got to meet Stanley. I saw people getting, and this is not to like nerd shame people or anything, but I saw people getting the first appearance of Deadpool signed by Stanley. And I'm like, why? You literally wasted $125 to get him to sign a comic that he has nothing to do with. There's a reason it doesn't say created by Stan Lee, New Mutants on that comic.
right.
And so I brought Silver Surfer Parable, which you read you've read Silver Surfer Parable, right?
No,
Silver Surfer Parable was a comic by him and Mobius. And a lot of people still consider one of the best Silver Surfer comics of all time. And in the intro, he talks about how when he first met Mobius, the one he finally got it, he understood how the fans met, how the fans felt when they met him and the creators and got to talk to them at shows and events. Because the thing in his head the whole time had thought that he said that he had in his mind, I really, really want him to say, I want to draw a Marvel comic.
hmm
And he said, yeah, I've been looking to draw a Marvel comic. And he said, and his other thought immediately following is, I really, really want to draw Silver Surfer. And he said, the second thing he said, I really have been thinking about Silver Surfer. And so, knowing how personal this was to him, I brought this to him. I got it signed, and then all of a sudden, he stopped doing conventions, and we're all like, "Well, oh no, what's going on? He's getting up to age." And then I found out that he passed away.
hmm
So, like you said, it's the experience, you know.
Yeah, and that's awesome you did it because over the course of my life, I think there were probably 5 or 6 cons that I was at that Stan Lee was at, and at every single one of them, I took a pass on it. Thinking, there'll be another one. He's always at these damn things, especially Chicago and yeah, it ended up never happening before he passed away. And I will for the rest of my life kick myself that I didn't get that one 10-15 seconds of sign this book and shake your hand.
Yeah. Um. So with that, we've been talking a lot, and I realized we didn't really actually touch on the show that much. That's the
Oh,
problem. We released two nerds on one podcast and haven't talked about the thing that they both love. Um.
right.
So with that, let's plug away, man. How do you get started on this podcast? I know you told me before this that this is not your first rodeo.
Right. Yeah, I started interestingly enough in September of actually 2019, September of 2019 I started podcasting. And it was just a podcast called The Finch Show, and it was literally 100% like I didn't have a theme is the best way to put it. I just wanted interesting people on the course of the time of doing that show. I had I had musicians on, I had academics on, I had doctors on, like whoever was just
That's so
interesting to
cool.
talk to. Like, let's just do it, you know. The funny thing is that with it starting in September of 2019, my one rule with the podcast is every podcast had to be in person, and then fucking COVID
Yeah. Oh,
happened.
we've never done it in person. Like literally our first guest was I think our first guest was Brad Jones, who oddly enough you'd probably be able to meet in person because he's in Illinois. But
Yeah.
we were in Arizona and he was in Chicago. And it's
Mm.
like that's when we realized because we had him and then we had Misty Lee on for our first two guests. And we're like, you know what? In person sounds great, but in person doesn't open you up to all the to opportunities like this.
Right. Yeah, and I did that for a number of years, and then oddly enough, like the weirdest thing happened is one year out of nowhere, my wife got me a 3D printer for Christmas. And I ended up massively getting into 3D printing, which massively got me into cosplay. And then it
So
just got
cool.
to the point where my show turned into like every episode was with a different cosplayer. And yeah, so there I kind of I ended that podcast and started another one with my best friend Kayla, called Nerdy AF, which was literally just like a 3D printing slash cosplay one. And we do that one here and there still.
So,
Um,
comrade, I hear you are joining the Thunderbolts.
You're right. Yeah. Yeah, that's the funniest thing about that is that in the cosplay community, I'm mostly known for Red Guardian. Um,
So fucking good.
which started off as a fluke. It wasn't intended. It was literally just I was going to a con and my friend of mine was dressing up as Yelena, and she was kind of like, "Dude, it'd be great if we had a Red Guardian." And I'm like, "I've got a beard. So I bought a Red Guardian costume. I printed the helmet and painted it." And went to this was WonderCon 2 years ago as Red Guardian, and it's just like fucking taken off since then. It's like
It's
it's still
awesome.
it still cracks me up to this day.
Yeah, seriously, you did a really good job on that. I've got to ask. Speaking of which, have you started? Have you finally started watching What We Do in the Shadows, or am I going to be disappointed in you?
Have I started watching it? I have not yet. I probably get harassed about that once a week, and it's not that I'm opposed to it. I just, my problem is that, as you well know, is it's like working, husband, father, cosplayer, podcaster. My watching TV time is so minimal, that it's like usually my only TV watching time is like the last half hour before I go to bed where I put something on to fall asleep. I'm so far behind, dude. I haven't seen Agatha all along. I haven't
Same.
started. I haven't started watching the new Daredevil. I haven't started watching the new Spider-Man. Yeah, for being a nerd, I'm horribly behind, and
We've basically
especially.
been watching, trying to catch up on wrestling events. We try to tell ourselves we're going to watch these shows, and we totally fall behind. And then I realized that my spouse has never seen Twin Peaks, and I'm like, and we started watching that, and I'm like, this was to be my movie week, and our movie week got taken over by Twin Peaks because I'm
Yeah,
like, let me show my girlfriend who loves mysteries and horror Twin Peaks. There's no way this will become a problem.
right.
That's a good problem to have.
It is. It
Yeah.
really is. Yeah. Well,
No, everyone, not the restaurant, the TV show.
right. Yeah, and it would be. I mean, just the fact that that's such a good thing that like even have that level of stuff in common.
Yeah.
That's the problem that my wife and I have is we're both cosplayers. We're both massive nerds. But we work totally opposite shifts. Like
We
she leaves.
unfortunately we literally work the exact same shift.
Oh, that makes yeah, and that's yeah, and her I think it was like 6 months ago she moved to the shift she's on, and that's why in like 6 months we haven't seen anything because literally she leaves for work before I get up in the morning. She gets home from work right before I go to work. I get home from work, she's already in bed.
Yeah.
So it's like throughout the week, it's just yeah, there's like no, and then when it gets to the weekends, it's like you know we have kids and we just want to like do stuff with the kids and maybe relax and so one of these days I think I'll just like take like 3 weeks vacation. We can spend the whole time getting caught up on everything.
But yeah, I know what you mean. Like we're actually gonna be going to the cult cinema convention in a town called Bastrop. If you remember Joe Bob Riggs Last Drive-In on TNT?
No,
Oh, okay. This is going to be a deep dive for you, and I apologize in retrospect. Because he was basically like one of those popular horror hosts of all time, and they brought him back on the app called The Shutter. And the show that we're going to, he's going to be there. His sidekick slash co-host is going to be there. The little kid from the Poltergeist is going to be there. All these people are going to be there, and our dog also functions as an emotional support animal. He's a little terrier chihuahua about that big, and he has a little push basket for events and stuff. And I mentioned them, and they're like, "Yeah, you can totally bring him." So it's
mm,
going to be me and my spouse and our fuzzy child.
Rocket,
Yep.
absolutely. That's awesome.
But yeah, I'm looking forward to that. What about you? What's your next show you got coming up?
Oh, two. Every year, got to do WonderCon in Anaheim. It is in my opinion, the best cosplayer friendly con that there is. It's become like my journey to Mecca once a year is to fly out to Anaheim and hang out with everybody. And it's such a great con for that because you go to cons and you know how they are. Um, but the great thing about the Anaheim Convention Center is out in front of the building, there's a big giant open area with a fountain and palm trees. So there's room for people to spread out and converse and do photo shoots and not feel like we're all like, crammed inside a building. So doing that one, and then 2 weeks after that is C2E2 in Chicago.
Ooh,
And
nice.
that's the
That's
other
gonna be
big
so
one of the
convenient
year.
to have a big con like that right down the street, basically.
Yes, that's the home con, and then July we have the third annual Uncanny Experience in Minneapolis.
Yeah,
So,
we're gonna be doing the Big Texas Comic Con in October. It's gonna be a lot of fun. It's more of a celebrity con, honestly. I'm not a big celebrity con person, but the fact that having grown up in Arizona for a long time, and the fact that Brian Pulido is going to be there, and also
mm,
being a huge Lady Death fan, I'm like, okay, I'm going. Lady
hell
Death,
yeah.
and I get to harass my friend Allie. Yes,
Yes.
in a totally appropriate way. Convention, appropriate way. Don't throw me
Right.
out.
Yeah. And I'm right there with you. I'm not like I don't freak out at cons over like what celebrities are going to be there, but every once in a while there's one that I'm just like, yeah, I'm getting a photo op out of that
I'm
one.
kicking myself for not going to the last Fan Expo in Dallas because Mads Mikkelsen and Hugh Dancy were both there, and
Oh
I'm a
yeah,
gigantic Hannibal fan.
they were at Fan Expo Chicago too
Yeah,
that year.
I,
Yeah.
I'm I am kicking myself over that one because that was one that I would have gotten a photo op of them no matter what.
Right. Yeah. Did Yeah, yeah, I'm sure you've seen Starship Troopers, like how you can be a nerd and not have seen
Of
Starship
course.
Troopers. Yeah, that's one of the ones because at C2E2, Dina Meyer is going to be there.
Oh, I've met her. She is a sweetheart.
Yeah, and that's one
Her
of the
and
ones
Casper Van Dien are both really, really nice people.
they are, and it's still this is like the weird like thing to throw out there, but to this day it weirds me out. Casper Van Dien doesn't follow me on Instagram, but his wife does.
Yeah. Oh, Jay?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Jenny Louder. Yeah, she's such a sweetheart. I've met her before too.
Those are
Um,
two people where I'm like, you are too attractive. Like I'm like
yeah.
both of you are just this is not real.
Why are
It's
you
like
not kicking out 500 babies and taking over the population? Like,
it's well if you ever look at Jude Law and Sadie Frost had because you know how when I hate to say it, I'm trying to be mean, but if you ever look at Rumor Willis and then you look at Bruce Willis and Demi Moore at their prime, and you're just like, I don't know how that happened, but it sure did.
right?
And then
Yeah.
you look at Jude Law and Sadie Frost's daughter, and you're like, oh yeah, that makes sense. It's like
Hmm.
here's two of the most beautiful people of all time, and they made one of the most beautiful people of all time.
Right.
Yeah, and I'm like, there you go.
They just need to use photographs of that in like middle school biology to teach heredity. Like,
Yeah.
do you see this? Too pretty makes pretty, right?
And I remember someone told me that would be shallow, and I'm like, not all the time. And that was my general response. It's like when my spouse and I met Brandon Roth, and she said it's creepy. She said he's one of the nicest people ever, super super sweet to everybody. Why does he look photoshopped? Why does he look like his promo poster at the convention?
He just perfected the smile and the pose, I guess, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
but
Mm,
but yeah, that's what we've got going on. we're going to do a follow-up show because this went so fast. I didn't realize we've been talking for an hour.
Oh, have we? Oh shit. Okay. Yeah, that's usually the way mine are. That's when you know they're good ones. Like there are times where I have a guest on like before I know it, I'm like, oh my God, like yeah, we just plowed through that thing like it was nothing.
But yeah. So with that, where can people find you in this wonderful, wonderful world called the internet and this totally non-toxic world of social media?
Right, yeah. Mine is probably like the most toxic of all. I will warn people about that. I'm just kidding. Instagram's the main place. That's where like 95% of my time is spent on Instagram. Um, Finch X, the at Finch X on there. I do have the Facebook. I'm not the best at keeping that up to date frequently because I like forget that Facebook exists sometimes. I've got a Blue Sky. I'm terrible at that one too. Do have a TikTok. I post a lot of stuff on TikTok too. But yeah, Instagram's the main place, folks.
Yeah. And for me, it's definitely Facebook. More so, oddly enough, most of our traffic comes from Facebook. I still understand it. Um, I have an Instagram out there that I forgot to delete. So Instagram, but there's never anything on there. I was gonna get rid of Facebook because of the whole Zuckerberg thing, but at the same time, it's like the majority of my family's on Facebook, and it's like shit. Um, but definitely Blue Sky and TikTok. I would need to be better at both of those. But in
Mm.
terms of listening and watching, where can people find you? That's the important part.
Yeah, YouTube is the main place. For a long time, I there was a weird transition where I started off doing the podcast like just audio only, and then eventually decided to add the YouTube side to it, and then just recently decided, oh, probably about a month ago that I was going to ditch the audio side of it completely and just release on YouTube. So yeah, go to YouTube, look up the Finch X Podcast. You'll see the logo there. It's not hard to miss, and yeah, hopefully you're ready to be along for the ride.
Yeah. And you can find us on YouTube. You can find us on Spotify. You can find us on iTunes. Weirdly enough, Google Play, where we get most of our traffic from. I still understand that, but whatever. Um, we were weirdly cyclical because we started as YouTube only, and then after that, we started going. We were like, we're not getting enough traffic. Let's go audio. And then we actually started looking at the numbers and we're like, oh, we're not getting much traffic there either. All right, what do we do? Just do both. And we just
Mhm.
started doing Spotify, iTunes, and YouTube because I am super OCD about my audio. So whenever I'm recording a show, I'm not using this track. I'm removing this track from the video. I'm doing an edited version of the audio and I'm putting it over
Mm.
the show because I can't stand like non-processed audio.
Oh.
So everything's up res and everything, and then I add that to the show. And
Okay.
I'm like, I have this audio track, so I might as well do something with it. So I take that and I make that audio only podcast. If it wasn't for that, I wouldn't do it.
Hmm.
But I'm like, I have this, why am I gonna waste it?
Yeah, that's funny. Because when I was doing it, I got to the point where I was doing it the opposite way, where I would record it on Zoom, edit the video for the YouTube version, and then all I would do is rip the audio
Yeah.
off it just to throw it up there for like the just the audio only listeners.
But yeah. So with that, this has been a blast, man. This went really, really quick. And
Hell yeah.
it's one of those great shows where I don't think it will really have to edit, which is the
Right.
best kind of show.
Oh yeah.
Um, but I wanted to say thank you again for coming on. Everyone, make sure to check out the Finch X podcast. It's awesome. Uh, please listen to Circuit 42. Pretend that we exist. Pity us, really. Um, and of course, with that, thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. And have a great night, everyone.